The morning air felt unusually crisp, as if the world itself had sensed the tension brewing inside the small town of Crestwood. My name is Harlan Vexley, and while I've handled countless estate cases over the years, nothing could have prepared me for the storm about to descend into my office. The letter arrived on a simple cream envelope, stamped and sealed in elegant cursive, Mr. Harlan Vexley, executor of the Ellington estate. It was signed by the late Reginald Ellington, or rather it would have been, had he not passed away a mere 3 weeks ago. Already the hallways of Crestwood whispered rumors. 2 wives, 4 children, untold tension simmering just beneath the surface. I had read dozens of wills in my lifetime, but this one promised chaos. The Ellington family was notorious for pride, rivalry, and long-held grudges. Today, they would confront me, and each other, in my office where the fate of their inheritance would be determined by nothing more than the words on a single legal document. By 10 o'clock, the storm arrived. First came Margaret Ellington, Reginald's first wife. She was the image of composed dignity, her gray hair tied neatly at the nape of her neck, her eyes sharp and calculating. She carried herself as though the world owed her respect, and perhaps in her mind, the inheritance did too. Behind her trailed Leonora Ellington, the second wife. Younger, elegant, but with a quiet intensity that suggested patience forged in experience. Her smile was polite, almost fragile, but her eyes betrayed a simmering ambition, ready to explode at the first sign of weakness. And then came the children. David Ellington, eldest son of Margaret, tall and imposing, his expression a careful mask of civility, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed the impatience simmering underneath. Clara Ellington, Margaret's daughter, sharp-tongued, perceptive, her gaze darting between everyone in the room as if calculating alliances and weaknesses. Edward Ellington, Leonora's son, younger, fiery, prone to sudden bursts of anger, and already sizing up his competition across the table. Sophie Ellington, Leonora's daughter, calm and observant, her lips pressed into a thin line. A quiet storm of calculation and hurt mingled in her eyes. The office, usually orderly and serene, suddenly felt claustrophobic. Papers rustled, pens tapped impatiently, and I, Harlan Vexley, knew that every word I spoke in the next few hours would be scrutinized, twisted, and weaponized. "Good morning," I said, my voice steady, though inside a tremor of anticipation shook me. "We are gathered here today to honor the final wishes of Reginald Ellington." The words hung in the air like smoke. Margaret's eyes narrowed imperceptibly. Leonora straightened, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. David's jaw twitched. Clara's fingers drummed lightly against the polished wood table. Edward's stare was unrelenting, a storm barely contained. Sophie, silent as ever, merely observed. I placed the thick envelope on the table. Inside this document, I continued, are the instructions left by Mr. Ellington regarding the distribution of his estate. I ask that you remain calm, allow me to read the will, and save any discussion or argument until the reading is complete. A tense silence filled the room. It lasted only a moment before David cleared his throat. "Harlan, let's be honest. We all know what this is about. It's about who gets what. There's no calm here. You know it." Clara shot him a sharp glance. "If anyone should talk, it's me. I've been patient for decades, and I will not sit here and let Edward." Edward leaned forward, his voice sharp. "And I will not sit here while you two act as if entitlement belongs to you alone. Mom may have been married first, but that doesn't give you all the rights." Margaret's hand rose, cutting through the noise. "Enough. We will not descend into shouting before the will is even read. Harlan, do your duty. Read it." Leonora's lips curved in a polite, dangerous smile. "Yes, please. Let us hear the truth at last." I opened the envelope, the crisp rustle of paper echoing like a drumbeat in the tense room. As I began reading the minor bequests, personal effects, charitable donations, small gifts to friends, I noted the subtle reactions. Clara's eyes narrowed, Edward's fingers clenched, Margaret's lips pressed tightly, Leonora's brow arched imperceptibly, David's jaw stiffened. Sophie remained silent, ever the observer. But then I reached the final section. The air thickened. My voice slowed, deliberately measured. "There is one final directive," I said, making sure every eye was on me. "The entirety of Reginald Ellington's estate is to be distributed not solely according to birthright, but according to the demonstration of character, responsibility, and past deeds toward others." The heirs who have shown greed, negligence, or cruelty shall receive less than those who have acted with integrity, compassion, and humility." The room erupted, quietly, but violently. Words collided, accusations flew, and the years of resentment that had been simmering beneath the surface finally boiled over. Margaret's voice trembled. "Are you saying David and Clara?" Leonora interrupted sharply. "And Edward and Sophie? What nonsense is this? He cannot decide based on some moral judgment." David slammed a fist against the table. "This is absurd. The law—" Clara leaned forward, her voice cutting like a knife. "The law doesn't mean right. Mom, we've been ignored too long." Edward's eyes burned. "Ignored? We were treated like second class from the start. And now this absurd moral test is just another slight." Sophie, finally speaking, her voice soft but clear, said, Maybe he's trying to make us see what we've done, what we've been." The room fell silent. Even the air seemed heavy, thick with decades of unspoken truths, past cruelties, and simmering rivalries. I, Harlan Vexley, felt the weight of the moment settle upon me. This was not merely a reading of a will, it was a reckoning. And as I looked around the table, I realized that the real inheritance was not just property or wealth. It was the lesson Reginald Ellington had left behind, a mirror reflecting the deeds, choices, and character of each of his children. No one would leave that office unchanged. The tension in my office felt suffocating. Papers lay scattered across the polished mahogany table, though none of us had the focus to touch them. The Ellington children, David, Clara, Edward, and Sophie, sat rigid, eyes burning, hands clenching and unclenching as they processed my words. Margaret and Leonora, their mothers, sat on either side like generals preparing for battle, poised but watchful. I, Harlan Vexley, knew that a simple reading of legal instructions would no longer suffice. Reginald Ellington had left more than money and property behind. He had left a mirror, one that reflected past deeds, bad behaviors, and choices that his children had made over decades. Today, that mirror was about to be held up, and no one in that room would escape unscathed. David broke the silence first. His voice was sharp, almost defensive. "You can't just judge us on morality. The law is clear. Everything should be split equally. This is ridiculous." Clara's lips curled into a sardonic smile. "Ah, yes, David, because equal treatment has always been our family's strong suit. Let's not forget the times you manipulated situations to your advantage. Mom covered for you plenty of times, didn't she?" David's face flushed crimson. "That's not true. You—" Edward leaned forward, his voice venomous. "You all talk about fairness, but what about us? Mom had to fight for our basic rights, and even then, we were sidelined. The world wasn't fair to us, and now Dad's spirit, if he truly cared about us, wouldn't sit idly while the first family got all the privileges." Sophie's voice, soft but cutting, finally entered the room. Perhaps he's not rewarding privilege at all. Maybe he's forcing us to confront our own actions, our past deeds, the way we've treated each other, the way we've treated others outside this family." The room went silent again. Margaret pinched the bridge of her nose, exhaling slowly. Leonora's hands tightened into fists in her lap, but her expression remained controlled. Years of watching her own family struggle had given her patience and a resolve to see justice served as her husband intended. I cleared my throat. "What your father intended is not simply to distribute wealth. He intended for you to recognize patterns in your own behavior: greed, cruelty, selfishness, and negligence. Some of you have been rewarded unfairly in life, while others have quietly done good deeds that have gone unnoticed. He has left instructions to ensure the latter are recognized." Clara scoffed. "So what, Dad's ghost becomes the moral police? Are we supposed to confess every bad thing we've done?" "Yes," Sophie said quietly, "or at least reflect. Think about the years you ignored or belittled others, the opportunities you wasted to do something meaningful. He's making us face ourselves." David leaned back, exhaling sharply. "And how are we supposed to prove who's been good and who hasn't? This isn't a test we signed up for." Edward slammed a fist against the table. "We don't need a test. We're his kids. That's enough. How can he judge morality?" Margaret's voice rose, authoritative and commanding. "Children, stop bickering. This is exactly what he wanted you to see. The pettiness, the rivalry. Look at yourselves. Look at how you act toward each other. This is your inheritance, your moral inheritance being tested." Leonora nodded. "Your father knew that wealth without reflection can corrupt. He's forcing a reckoning. If you can't see that, the estate won't be distributed in the way you expect." I placed the will's final envelope in the center of the table. The next part of the reading contains specific instructions, examples of deeds that were considered, with explanations. Listen carefully. It's detailed, and it may surprise you. The first document I unfolded was thick, almost weighty in its significance. I began reading, slowly, deliberately, making sure every eye was on me. David Ellington, recognized for achieving professional success but noted for several incidents where colleagues were undermined or belittled. Each case included letters from coworkers documenting the effect of his behavior. Clara Ellington, noted for charitable contributions and moments of kindness, but also for instances of manipulation within the family, particularly with her younger half-siblings. Edward Ellington, praised for defending family members outside his immediate comfort zone, but criticized for impulsive anger and reckless decision-making that caused hardship to others. Sophie Ellington, quietly recognized for consistent acts of empathy, volunteering in the community, and mediating family disputes, though her contributions had largely gone unnoticed in life. As I read, the room grew tense. Murmurs arose. Fingers drummed against the table. David's knuckles whitened. Clara's eyes glimmered with both pride and guilt. Edward's jaw tightened, and Sophie's gaze never left mine, steady, calm, and unwavering. Margaret leaned forward, her voice softer now. "Do you see it? Do you understand the message your father left? Your actions, not your birthright, define what you are worthy of. He wanted you to face yourselves before facing the wealth he left behind." Leonora's voice was firm. "And now you understand why arguments over legal inheritance are pointless if you fail this lesson. It's not about property. It's about character. Dad wanted you to recognize that." David finally spoke, his tone quieter, tinged with discomfort. I see. I think. Maybe I haven't always been the best." Clara swallowed hard. I think I understand now. There's more to life than ambition and proving myself." Edward's voice was gruff, hesitant. I acted rashly. I see that now. I didn't consider others enough." Sophie nodded silently, a hint of relief in her eyes, as though decades of unseen good had finally been acknowledged. The room seemed to breathe as the initial storm of accusations subsided. Yet I knew this was only the beginning. The full reckoning was far from over. Reginald Ellington's will had more instructions, more revelations about past deeds, and the final distribution of his estate would hinge on whether his children truly internalized the lessons hidden within these pages. I looked around the room, at 2 wives, 4 children, and decades of pride, rivalry, and unresolved guilt. Today was the first step toward redemption or failure, and the next part of the reading would leave no one untouched. The room felt smaller now, heavy with unspoken truths. Each face around the table was taut with tension, guilt, or simmering resentment. I, Harlan Vexley, sat with the will in front of me, aware that the next stage of this reading would strip away any illusions of innocence. Reginald Ellington had designed this portion not merely to distribute property, but to reveal the moral ledger of every member of his blended family. I cleared my throat. The next section of the will pertains to specific incidents in your lives, moments that your father considered crucial in evaluating character. These are letters, accounts, and observations he kept meticulously. He wished for transparency, and now you will see the consequences of your actions. David leaned back, his face pale. "I don't want to hear this. I've worked hard. Everything I've done is mine." Clara gave a sharp laugh. "Hard work doesn't excuse selfishness, David. Face it. We all know it." Edward muttered under his breath. "This is insane. Dad's reading us like children." Sophie, as always, remained calm. Maybe we needed this. Maybe he knew we would never confront ourselves otherwise. I opened the next envelope containing several letters and documents. Each was addressed to me, Harlan, but clearly intended to be read aloud. I began with David Ellington, a record of moments when ambition overshadowed ethics, instances of business deals manipulated, family favors ignored, and opportunities to support younger siblings passed over for personal gain. Each note included witness statements from colleagues and family friends, all chronicled with precision. David's hands shook as I read aloud. I didn't know he remembered all that," he whispered, almost to himself. Margaret's eyes softened momentarily, but she quickly regained her stern demeanor. "He remembered. He always remembered. You've benefited from his guidance, David, but at what cost to others?" Clara shifted in her seat, bristling. "And I'm next, right? Let's see what skeletons you dug up, Father." Clara Ellington, praised for moments of generosity and support to family, yet criticized for manipulative behavior, using charm to sway decisions, creating rifts between siblings, and quietly undermining Edward's achievements. Letters from friends and distant relatives painted a picture of someone whose kindness was often transactional. Clara's eyes glimmered with tears, though she blinked them away. I see it. Maybe I tried too hard to protect myself." Edward scowled, leaning forward. "It's my turn. I know what I did. I've been reckless, yes, but others provoked me. That doesn't make me a bad person." Edward Ellington. The documents outlined moments of courage and integrity, but also impulsive aggression and decisions that harmed not only himself, but those around him. Several accounts detailed missed opportunities to support family due to pride or anger. Edward's jaw tightened as he absorbed the words. His hands trembled on the table. I didn't realize the impact on everyone else." Finally, Sophie's file lay before me. Her hands remained folded calmly in her lap, and she offered no defensive commentary. Sophie Ellington, noted extensively for quiet, consistent acts of kindness, resolving family disputes, volunteering in the community, and supporting both mothers' households equally. The will highlighted that her deeds had often gone unnoticed, overshadowed by louder voices, yet were exemplary of the moral values Reginald cherished most. I looked at Sophie. "You, of all your siblings, have lived with integrity, often without recognition. Your father wanted this acknowledged publicly. Now it is." Sophie's gaze met mine, steady and gentle. "Thank you," she whispered. "That's all I ever wanted, just to do right." Quietly, a heavy silence settled over the room. Margaret and Leonora exchanged glances, both silently acknowledging the lesson their children were receiving. David finally spoke, voice trembling. I think I understand. Maybe I've been selfish." Clara nodded reluctantly. "I see my own mistakes. I thought control was power, but it's not. Not really." Edward exhaled sharply. "I acted rashly. I see that now." Sophie remained composed, but her eyes softened. "We all have lessons to learn. The inheritance isn't just money. It's understanding the consequences of our actions and making better choices." Margaret leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. "And this is what your father wanted. Not fighting, not arguing, understanding, reflection, recognition of deeds, good and bad alike. He knew you would resist, but he also knew that clarity comes from confronting the truth." Leonora added quietly, "The fight over wealth pales in comparison to the fight within yourselves. This is the legacy he leaves, not merely assets, but insight, conscience, and reflection." David, for the first time that day, hung his head. Clara's eyes glistened, Edward's shoulders slumped, and even Sophie's serene expression hinted at the weight of her responsibility. I, Harlan Vexley, observed all this, aware that the next portion of the will, the final distribution, would hinge on the lessons learned today. Reginald Ellington's design was masterful, wealth as a mirror, reflection as inheritance, and moral reckoning as the gatekeeper. The tension was still palpable, but the storm had shifted. Now the question was no longer just who gets what, but who has earned the right to carry forward his legacy with honor, and I knew, with certainty, that the next stage of this reading would bring the most heated confrontations yet.
Thank you for watching this story until the end. If you found it meaningful, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your support helps us continue bringing powerful, real stories from around the world.